Welcome back to producing a song in Studio One. We're up to part 3. We've done the drums, we've done the chords. Now it's time for some bass. Bass, I think, is probably my favorite part of a song. Well, drums and bass, the rhythm section, it's so important. If you get it right, everything else kind of builds on itself and it feels really good. If you get it wrong, it can sound bad. I hope you're finding this helpful. Again, I'd like to reiterate, this is kind of a beginner level course. You know, we can get way more in depth. We can get way more complicated with plugins, with instruments, just with general processes. You know, instead of spending 10 minutes on chords, we can spend an hour if we want. This is just to give you a guide of how things kind of begin, and then, you know, maybe down the line I'll make a more advanced version of this. But enough blabbing from my end. Let's get into it. So what we've got so far, just as like a little recap. It's got a good feel. And I also had this other chord progression. I like the piano more. Let's keep going with the piano for this. You know, and also we did the drums. I'm just going to bring the chorus loop here so we kind of have verse then straight into chorus, a kind of really condensed version, and we can make that a little bit more interesting later. So for bass, I think there's a few options. We can use any of these. We can use Mai Tai, Mojito, or Presence, or even Sample One if you want to grab like a bass one shot, like a, you know, an 808 or a double bass or a bass guitar. You can throw it into Sample One and then turn it into an actual like sample instrument similar to what Presence is, which is actually really fun. I really enjoy doing that. I don't personally do this too much, but if you click on this little down arrow on the instrument, it gives you all the presets. So we could jump on bass, vintage bass, fingered, full. Let's try that. So that sounds pretty good as far as the bass goes. I think this probably also has, I want to say, like, yeah, synth bass if we want an analog synth bass. Doesn't sound very good. Sounds alright. Mai Tai, it'll be a similar kind of story where they've got lots of basses. Lots of options. For this, I'm going to use Mojito, which is, I imagine how you say it. And this is just like a really basic single oscillator kind of instrument. So it doesn't sound great, but I use it surprisingly a fair bit to make basses because it's just really simple and it's solid. Let's see how this feels with the track so far. Also, what I love about Studio One is if you right click this, because I did this yesterday, right? I can go extract chord track from instrument parts, and then we can look at the chords. We could also figure this out by just clicking and highlighting. It'll say C, or you can just look at the bass notes I've already played. But yeah, C is the starting note. Nice. That sounds like, that feels pretty good. I'm gonna record that. And I messed up a note here, so I'm gonna jump in and go quantize. And if you want the glide, you need the note to kind of hang over a little bit. So I feel like in this moment, I don't want the like punch of it. And I'm going to change the glide time a little bit so it's a bit, just like a little bit shorter. Go into here. That feels better. So obviously I'm getting that hit right at the start, and that's okay. And thinking about it as well, this is probably a chorus part. It's got a bit of movement. Well, I mean, maybe, like, I mean, it's all subjective, right? So I'm going to record another one for the verse and have it just held out notes, nothing crazy. Then when the chorus hits, we have a little bit more melodic fun. So it's more boring, but it does the trick. And what I'm going to do again is just make sure I've got these kind of overhanging. Except for the last one. We can't control that. And just color it differently. That's quite loud right now. So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. Feels pretty good. And what we can actually do is if we jump into this chorus part, obviously the progression as it starts again, there's that hit, but I can just drag this out so that it doesn't do that. And then we get that kind of consistent feeling. And we can also do that from the verse as well. I'm not going to, just because I want to keep it clearly like chorus and verse, but we could also condense these together by highlighting them both and pressing G. And then you could hang that last note over a little bit. So easy to do. That feels pretty good to me. What I'm going to chuck on is just Pro EQ. I'm just going to filter out a little bit to like 30 of the bass. Can I solo it on this? Perhaps not. That's all right. You definitely do not need too much in the sub 30 space. This is mixing. I do tend to mix whilst I'm producing, so it's kind of the line does get a little bit blurry when some people produce and then send to a mixer. I tend to produce and mix projects that I'm working on, which means that I'm kind of doing parts of mixing as I'm producing because it makes my life easier when I get to mixing, and then once it's mixing, I'm kind of doing other parts. But things like EQing low ends are out, and subtle compression, mainly for vibes, to be honest. Like if I want it to sound a certain way, I'll process it. I don't think there's really a right or a wrong way to go about these kind of things. Like they're just kind of different, right? They're different processes, but it's no problem in starting it early. I hope that made sense. I'm going to do the same to this one. I'm just going to jump in and make sure that that note in the center drags over. Nice. And so the other way that we could get a bass part is if we just copied the chords and we jumped in, and when I played the chords I was playing bass notes, so I could always just come in and by pressing 5 it turns to the mute tool. I can just mute all these bits and we're left with the bass. Or you could, as I said, just highlight them and then we can see the chords and you can just pencil them in. But I like to play parts, so that's what I did. Just make sure it sounds good to your ear. You don't want it to be too low. Like I could have dropped this an octave. And to be honest, it doesn't sound bad. This is too low. I can barely hear that. It's just gonna muddy up the song. This is like a maybe. It depends where you want the energy. You can have like a super low bass. It's not going to be as audible. Perhaps you'll feel it more when you're listening to it. Again, like there's different ways to do it. I think I'm happy with where it is right now. I mean, it's good to kind of check it in relation to a kick. Like it feels pretty good. Honestly, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer there. I'm just going to leave it as it was because that's just simpler. That is part 3 done. That's how we add bass to a song. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're looking for a producer or mixing engineer, I do those things. So send me an email or check my website in the description and you can hear my work and we can work together and it'll be great fun. Also, there's free Studio One presets also in the description. So go check those out. Bye.